one of the major lies that was taught to the American people came about through our government school system. In the government school system, they taught us, as I said before, they taught us about how the government was supposed to function, at least from the government point of view. And one of the things that they taught us was that our form of government is a democracy, where the majority rules. A majority-rule democracy, and we can rarely turn on the television news but what we see some politician talking about our democracy, or they're talking about over in Russia how their President Yeltsin is trying to put together a democracy. Now, every place that we have tried to go in and create a democracy, those people have always had trouble. They say we have to protect this democracy thing, and they said we went into Vietnam and to help those people create a democracy over there, and what we did was create a tremendous mess. A lot of our good young American blood was shed over there on that foreign soil. It seems like we're not doing too well over in Somalia, and we're not doing too well in Haiti. We didn't do too well down in San Salvador. And every place we've gone trying to instill a democracy, we end up with chaos. Well, the reason for that is very simple, because a democracy has never worked in all of history. It has been tried, and it has been proven a failure every time that it has been tried, and it is a failure in this country, but they are still teaching the students in our schools, our government schools, that we have a democracy. Now, a democracy is a system that will not work. And I am here to explain to you why it won't work. And the way I do that is this. Most of you have heard the term pecking order. The biologists, they went out in the barnyard and they watched the chickens in the barnyard, and they came to the conclusion that every flock of chickens had a chicken that was dominating the entire flock. And each chicken in that society had its proper position. Each chicken knew where it belonged in that chicken society. Every herd of cows I've had coming from Montana and having a few cows of my own, I have recognized the fact that in every herd of cows you will have a boss cow, a dominant critter in that herd of cows. Now, human societies are no different. In every governmental society on the face of the earth, you will find that there is a pecking order. Somebody is at the top, and somebody's at the bottom, and then there are those in between. The military, it doesn't make any difference what military you're talking about, has a pecking order, only they call it the chain of command. And when you go into the military, they teach you the chain of command. That's probably the first thing you're going to learn when you go into the military. And you're going to be taught very specifically that as a new recruit, you have no power. The power is all up the ladder. And so the democracy form of government will have a pecking order. And we must understand that pecking order if we're going to understand how our system was designed to function 200 years ago. The pecking order in a majority-rule democracy is here. You will notice, of course, I have the pecking order over here in the constitutional republic, which is our lawful form of government. The founders of this country, the word democracy was a dirty word in their vocabulary. Thomas Paine, the great motivator of the American War of Independence, he said, a democracy is the vilest form of government there is. James Madison, who is known as the father of our U.S. Constitution, he said a democracy will lead to the loss of property rights. It will lead to chaos. They knew that a democracy would not work, and they tried to warn us about the dangers of a democracy. But here we are, 200 years later, and our government controls the schools, and they're teaching that we have a democracy. Thomas Paine must be spinning in his grave, because we today in this country have a vile form of government. What does that word vile mean? Well, I think the word evil probably is more fitting, and we probably understand that a little better today if we say we have an evil government. Now, the pecking order. Right at the top in the pecking order here in this system, we have Group X. I will explain who Group X is after I go through the rest of the list, because no one has ever told us anything about there being a Group X up there at the very top in our political system. They taught us that the majority controlled the government with their vote on election day. This vote right here. They said that the majority controls the government. The government then, of course, controls the public servants. They create the case and the statute law. The statute law, of course, creates the corporations. And guess who's on the bottom in this democratic system? We, the people, as individuals, are on the bottom. We are powerless today in the system if you are operating under the rules and the teaching that was given to you in the government school. You are powerless if you're not using your grand jury vote and your trial jury vote to control that monster. Most Americans find themselves right here on the bottom today. They go to the polls on election day, and they are confronted with a ballot that has two evils. Two evils. You've got two candidates running for the same office, and they're both evil, and you try to figure out which is the lesser of two evils, right? And you walk out of those polls after you have cast your ballot, and you are frustrated, and you feel absolutely powerless. The reason is you're on the bottom. That registered voter that understands his grand jury and his jury power, he's not that concerned, because he knows that if he gets on that grand jury or on that trial jury, he can make his vote count. He has some power because he has knowledge. What is knowledge? Knowledge is truth stored in the mind. If you have lies stored in the mind, you don't have any knowledge, do you? You have degrees. You perhaps have all kinds of letters behind your name. PhD, perhaps. But if it was the lies you believed that qualified you for that PhD, you don't have knowledge. These people down here don't have knowledge. They have believed the lie, and they believe that their only power is that one vote on election day. Group X, who are they? Every Monday morning we have 12 bankers that go back to Washington, D.C. These 12 bankers are unelected. They never run for office. You will never see their names on a ballot. You are not going to have any choice as to who they are. They are unknown. And they will remain unknown because they don't want you to know who they are. And they don't want you to understand how much power they have because they control the majority. We go back to 1979, October of 79. Jimmy Carter is towards the end of his 4 years in the United States. He has not announced for re-election. The country knows that he will run for re-election. Ronald Reagan has been running since 1976 for the Republican nomination in 1980. These bankers, this group right here, 12, they have decided that Jimmy Carter is not going to have a second 4-year term in the White House. They have decided that it is going to be Ronald Reagan who will be the next president of the United States. And so they started raising the interest rates in October of 1979. Every time the interest rates went up a point or a half a point, you had another million or so of our countrymen who were out of a job. Steel workers, auto workers, loggers, sawmillers, carpenters, plumbers, electricians, so many of these people were out of work, and we had what they called a recession. And interest rates went all the way up to 20%, and who got blamed for it? Was it Group X that was blamed for all of that? No. Nobody blamed them. They all blame Jimmy Carter.